Texas A&M released their depth chart, and there were some surprise starters for the 2024 season.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So, ladies and gentlemen, the official depth chart for the Aggies came out yesterday, and there were some surprise starters. There were some surprise players in the 2 deep, but I think the most overall shock on this depth chart was Cyrus Allen being listed as the starter in the slot, and Moose Muhammad being listed as the wide receiver 2 at Z behind Ja'Day Walker. That, to me, really, really shocked me. I just flat out was not expecting that. And it's funny because, when was that? A week or two ago, we talked about how it was a little interesting how there was a video on Twitter. And it was a pass from Connor Wigman to Noah Thomas. It was like a highlight that they posted. It was a great throw. And they were kind of highlighting like this play. But then when you looked back at it, you saw Cyrus Allen running with who we projected to be the ones. And that was a little bit surprising. And I said, are we reading too much into this? Is Moose really not going to be out there starting? What's going to happen here? And then there you go. Cyrus Allen's going to be the guy. Obviously, also, this means that Jabri Barber, let me look over this one more time. Yep, no Barber. It looks like Jabri Barber is, we're still expecting him to be back much sooner than we previously anticipated. But it sounds like he's not going to really be good to go for this game just based off depth chart, because if he was healthy, I think he'd be on this depth chart. But top to bottom, and we'll start on offense here in segment 1. We'll go to defense in segment 2. Also, sorry about the audio today. I was getting ready to press the record button and then just spilled so much water all over my computer. And I'm very lucky I'm actually being able to record it all. Long story, but we're fortunate to have anything right now. But we'll start talking about offense. Then here in segment 2, we'll run through defense. But I think the only surprise starter would be Cyrus Allen. I think if you'd have asked me 2 months ago, maybe even a month ago, about tight end, because Trey Watson is listed as the starting tight end. And it's really, the vibes have been going that way over the last, about 2-3 weeks. And I am still a huge believer in Donovan Green. I believe he's going to have a big season. I believe he's got a ton of great football still to be played in his career. But I also think that he's not fully back to being Donovan Green from the ACL tear. I mean, it's something you talk about with fantasy football all the time. You see, I guess real football, but, fantasy football is our reality. But, you see it all the time, a running back, and you go, oh, man, this guy's coming off an ACL tear. I'm going to get him two rounds later than I maybe should. And they end up not having a great year. I think Javonte Williams in Denver is a great example of that. Sometimes players just don't come back the same. And I'm not saying that's going to happen to Donovan Green. What I'm saying is it's just going to take him a little bit longer maybe than I anticipated for him to be Donovan Green. So hopefully he's able to get back to being himself soon, being able to cut, being able to get open and burst and all that. And he'll be back out on the field. And I think he will be able to take back over that role. But it might take a few weeks into the season. So as of right now, Trey Watson's the starter. So I don't know if I'd list that as a surprise starter, knowing that we've kind of felt it was going that way. But, that's where we're at now. Also, for those looking at the depth chart, obviously I'm going to break this down and talk about it. But I think that for those of you looking at it yourselves, so there's a few this player or this player. And to me, the player listed first is the guy that's first. That it's listed as or, but I still think the guy listed first is the one that they're kind of leaning towards, based off of what we've heard from the coaches, like Micah Tease or Isaiah Williams, Amari Daniels or EJ Smith, stuff like that. I think that's kind of the vibe I get. But looking at the rest of the receivers, you got Noah Thomas as the starter at X with Jacob Bostic, the transfer, behind him. I think we've talked about how good I think Noah Thomas is going to be. I think he's going to have a monstrous season for the Aggies. I think he's getting ready to have I'm definitely thinking double-digit touchdowns, and I'm thinking he's going to get really close to 1,000 yards. Now, going against this Notre Dame defense on Saturday, is he going to have this huge, massive game? I'm not sure. I think he very well could have 80 yards. I think he'd get in the end zone. But, it's an elite defense for Notre Dame, so it's going to be tough sledding for all of these offensive players. Then at the other receiver spot, we already talked about Cyrus Allen. Micah Tease is the 2 deep there with Isaiah Williams listed as or. And then Janae Walker is the starter at Z with Moose Muhammad behind him. I'll tell you this. The Aggies have great size at outside receiver. Sometimes I think we forget that Janae Walker is 6'4", 205. I mean, he's no joke. And then you've got Noah Thomas at 6'6", 200. So he's the long, lengthy receiver. And then you still got Janae Walker, who's a tall, strong receiver, but he's 205 at 6'4". I mean, he's built. He's built strong for a receiver. Tight end, it's what I talked about. Trey Watson there. Then it's listed as Shane Calhoun or Donovan Green or Theo Mellon-Orstrom. So I think that right now the order there, in all honesty, I think it goes Watson, Calhoun, Green, Mellon-Orstrom. But I also think you're going to see a lot of those guys mixing out for different plays, for different blocking schemes. There's going to be a lot going on there that I think you're going to see players mix in and out. Then at quarterback, of course, it's Connor Rigman. Now they haven't. So I guess they haven't technically listed a backup quarterback. They haven't listed Jalen Henderson or Marcel Reed. So maybe Jalen Henderson's won that job. I think that eventually Coach Elko is going to name a backup quarterback, so we'll see. But right now, I think Jalen Henderson won that job, which surprises me a little bit. As y'all know, I think that they're very close, neck and neck, but I just leaned Marcel Reed by a narrow margin, and it sounds like Jalen Henderson's got the job done there, but I'm sure we'll hear more about that. The end of the offensive line, right now, you've got at center listed Colley or Mark Naboo. I've heard people are leaning Colley, but this one's going to be you never know. You could see Mark Naboo come out there and start. That's, I think, one of the most interesting offensive battles that's still going on. Then at left guard, Chase Pasantis is listed as the starter with Cam Dewberry listed as the backup or Aki listed as the other option at backup. So you got two the backups there. Then at left tackle, Trey Zunes, obviously the guy, we know that. And then the backup is Hunter Erb. At right guard, it's Armaj Reed Adams listed as the starter with TJ Shanahan listed as his backup. Then it sounds like Demetrius Crownover might win this job. He's listed at, is right now listed Demetrius Crownover or Reuben Fothery. But once again, based on this, we think the player on the left is the guy. It sounds like Demetrius Crownover might win this job. So we're going to have to see. Coaches don't love to give you a full-on real depth chart. They like to mess with you a little bit. And that's the case here. So we're going to have to see who runs out there. Is it going to be Crownover? Is it going to be Fothery? That's one of the more interesting remaining conversations. But right now, I think it's going to be Crownover. And then at running back, you got Le'Veon Moss listed as the starter with Amari Daniels or EJ Smith then listed as the guys in the two deep. And yes, I do believe Amari Daniels is going to be the guy in the two deep at running back with, of course, Ruben Owens down with the injury. But that is how the offense shakes up. And it's going to be really interesting to see how this offense plays against an elite Notre Dame defense. Now, I want to talk about the defense, talk about some players in the two deep that are a little surprising, talk about some players that are starting, and then there's one position battle still, we think, going on with a few days left of game day. We'll talk about that coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But I got to tell you about our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. I think the best time to use 5 Hour Energy, there's two times. I think in the morning to get you going and after lunch. Talked about what it's like after lunch yesterday, but the other time as well is before a workout. Want to get in shape but have trouble staying motivated? Make 5 Hour Energy shots part of your lifestyle and get the energy boost you need to get fit. We all know you sometimes do not want to go to the gym. Take a 5 Hour Energy shot to give you the feeling and alertness so you can get to the gym. With zero sugar and a convenient portable size, it's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. Take 5 Hour Energy, or the 5 Hour Energy website has flavors galore like watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry, and more. There's a flavor for everyone. I also love how on the site you can even have an option to build your own 12-pack or 24-pack. You can choose the flavors and mix and match what you want in there, which is a great feature. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that is the number 5hourenergy.com, and get 5 Hour Energy product today. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This order is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. So looking at this defensive depth chart, I think the first thing that I'm looking at here, and once again, I don't know if I'm calling I don't think there's any surprises on the defense. There's some interesting names in the two deep. So, but let's just start at defensive end and run through this and talk about who's gonna get out there and who's gonna start for the Aggies. So, at defensive end, you've got Nick Scorton listed as the starter. No surprise there. I think that he is going to be crucial in this game. I think that we're getting ready to read some quotes from Coach Elko at the tail end talking about the offensive line and of Notre Dame. And yes, Notre Dame fans that are here, once again, Notre Dame, the history of offensive linemen it's very rich. I mean, there's some great offensive linemen that played at Notre Dame. And then you add on top of that how well they've done recruiting, and they don't miss a lot on offensive line. All of that is true. And yes, I believe this Notre Dame offensive line down the stretch is going to be great. They're going to figure it out because they always are. But, man, it's just hard to feel really confident. I mean, Notre Dame fans, I think, have to agree on this. It's hard to feel really confident knowing how young this offensive line is and how inexperienced this offensive line is. You can sit here and talk all day about, well, they're talented, and, well, our offensive line is always good. Well, it's always good until it's not. I'm not saying that's going to happen. But I am saying Texas A&M's defensive line is going to really test if they're good or not. So we're going to figure that out, and I'm really excited to see what ends up coming from that. But like I said, Nick Scorton starting defensive end. Josh Salazar, the transfer, is listed in the two deep. Then at defensive tackle, we've got Shamar Turner listed as the starter with Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy in the two deep, and Rodas Johnson as well listed as or between those two, with Turner obviously listed as the starter. Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy and Rodas Johnson are two players that I think are going to come in and be huge depth pieces for the Aggies. I think they play a significant role. I think they have an all-around solid season as depth defensive line pieces. You're going to want to rotate players in. You're going to want to have fresh legs, especially when you have enough talent and enough depth like the Aggies do on this defensive line. Then at the other defensive tackle spot, you've got DJ Hicks or Albert Regis listed as the starter, with Samu listed in the two deep. I think this is either one of those options. I think they're both going to play. Either one of those options you put out there, I'm fine with. Both high upside players. So, I mean, obviously, you've got a little bit more experience in Regis than Hicks, but Hicks, I think, is the higher upside play. So either direction you go there, I'm cool with. I think it's all going to work out great there. Then at defensive end, you've got Shamar Stewart listed as the starter. And then you've got Malik Sia listed as the backup. I think both of these guys are going to have a solid season rushing the passer. I'm really excited to see what Shamar Stewart's going to do this year. I mean, that 6'6", 290 frame is really great. He's going to be able to get active and get in the backfield. So I'm really excited to see what he's going to be able to do. Then at Jack, you've got Cassius Howell listed as the starter, 6'4", 245, another guy that is going to just live in the backfield. And Ryland Kennedy, a guy that we talked about, hey, could he be one of the most significant sleepers on this roster? Had a great offseason. There he is. He's listed in the 2 deep here, which is great to see. I'm not, based on the way he's been playing and things I've heard about him, that does not come as one bit of a surprise to me. Then here's where it gets interesting. At linebacker, you got Taryn York, obviously. Then in the 2 deep there, you got Tristan Jernigan, the freshman, and Jordan Lockhart, the freshman. So you got two freshmen. There. And it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the 2 deep at that spot. But where this linebacker room is really going to be decided is at this other spot. And right now, you've got Solomon DeShields or Damian Samford or Scooby Williams. I am a believer that Solomon DeShields is going to be the starter. That's just kind of what I think is going to happen. I think that he is the best option. I think perhaps Scooby Williams is the highest upside play, just talking about the talent he has. But Solomon DeShields has played a lot of football, and I think he's the guy who's going to come in and be a really good linebacker for the Aggies next to a great player in Taryn York. So I lean Solomon DeShields, but it is going to be interesting to see who runs out there. Then you go to nickel. Right now it's listed at Tyreek Chappelle or Jaden Hill, the transfer, with Bravion Rogers listed in the 2 deep. And then I want to run through the whole secondary, and then I'll give my thoughts here. Then you've got at corner Tyreek Chappelle or BJ Mays or Javon Thomas at one spot. Then the other spot, you got Will Lee or Des Ricks with Donovan Saunders as the 2 deep. At safety, no oars there. We got Bryce Anderson listed as the starter, Jared Kerr in the secondary, and in the 2 deep. Trey Jones as well in the 2 deep. Then in the other spot, you got Dalton Brooks or Trey Jones or Marcus Ratcliffe. I think that you're going to end up seeing Bryce Anderson and Dalton Brooks be back there. I think they're going to be the guys. Tariq Chappelle, we've been hearing a lot about him playing nickel. I think that they're going to end up going with him at nickel and then going with Mays or Thomas at corner. And then what happens between Will Lee and Des Ricks is going to be another interesting part of how this shapes out, because either direction you go there, I think you're putting yourself in a really good spot. And then specialists, of course, Randy Bond's your kicker. Tyler White is your punter. Tyler White's your holder. Kick returner, we see Le'Veon Moss and Terry Bussey listed here. Punt returner, Terry Bussey is listed as the starter or punt return. Moose Muhammad is listed as the backup punt returner. Your snapper is Jacob Graham. So great to see you're going to be able to get the football in Bussey's hands there. So that is very exciting. They're going to find ways to get Terry Bussey the football this year, I'm telling you, on both sides of the ball. We've got to run through some of these quotes from Coach Elko and what he said leading up to this Notre Dame game. We'll talk about that coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I got to tell you about our friends over at Ultimate HC. This is, I'm telling y'all, this game, I've downloaded it. I've been playing. It is an absolute blast. What I love about the game is that you are responsible for play calling. A lot of games that are similar to this, you don't get to call plays. It's just, you don't get to do that. That's the fun of it, is picking what play you're going to run. I love that aspect of it. You get to, hey, okay, I call it a pitch to the running back. That play works a lot. And it works out and you feel like, man, I should do this for a living. I need to call my old high school and see if they want me to come be the OC. It is a ton of fun to play. I'm telling y'all. To download the game, just visit ultimate-cfb.com, ultimate-cfb.com, or look it up on the App Store. And, of course, when you do that, Locked On Aggies fans can use promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, and you will receive a free boost to your program. Make sure to take advantage of this perk as it will get your team off to a strong start. Also want to talk about our friends over at Ibotta. So, sandals, sunscreen, snacks for the kids. What do all these things have in common? You're probably buying a ton again this summer, but don't stress about the cost. Use Ibotta and get cash back on all of your purchases when you stock up on all of your summer essentials. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. Earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. So I want to run through some quotes here from Coach Elko leading up to the season. So I think some of the more interesting quotes are about Notre Dame's offensive line. So he does say Notre Dame has recruited the offensive line really well for a really long time. The 6 starts maybe is a concern for them to some degree, maybe in the opener, but I'm sure these young kids they're putting out there are really talented. He goes on to talk about how basically they're all going to be NFL draft picks. It doesn't matter. They're young, but they're talented. Kind of what I was getting at, and I believe he's right about this. I think it's a group that's uber talented, but you're going to have to. You're playing in a tough environment. Some of these guys are making their first ever start. I mean, it's not an ideal thing for a young offensive lineman. I also like that Coach Elko says Reuben Owens is their only injury. A couple of kids with nicks and bruises, but nothing that's holding them back. It has been a really successful fall camp from that perspective. Losing Reuben Owens hurts bad, but one injury, it could be worse. It could be a lot worse. So losing one guy is something you can definitely live with if you are Texas A&M. So he says, I think they're critical in every game. The way you control the line of scrimmage dictates the flow of the game. Offensively, if we can control the line of scrimmage and we create clean pockets for Connor Wigman and create running lanes for our backs, that makes the game really easy. And then he talks about just kind of game starting. There will be a moment walking to the tunnel for sure when it hits you about where you are and where you've gotten into to in life. There'll be a surreal feeling walking down the tunnel with the drums at Kyle Field for the first time. You don't have a lot of these. You don't have a lot of time as a coach to sit back and think about those type of things. It's head down and go. But I'd be lying if I said it won't be special walking down that tunnel for the first time. It's going to be really cool to see Coach Elko do that for sure. Talking about this with the defense of Notre Dame, they don't give you a lot of soft surfaces to run the football. We're going to have to find some. We're going to have to make some with our offensive line. We're going to have to make some with our running backs. We're going to have to get creative with how we get some space and get our backs going. It is not going to be easy for the Aggies to get the ball going on the ground. We've talked about how talented this Notre Dame defensive line is. We've talked about how talented this Notre Dame defense is in general. It's not going to be easy for the Aggies to get things going on the ground, get things going offensively at all. You got to find a spark. The offensive line has got to create holes for these backs and has got to give Connor Wigman time. That is going to make the difference in the game. No surprise. We've said that for weeks. We've said that for months. If the offensive line can do that, the Aggies can win this game. If they don't play well, it's going to be really hard for Texas A&M to pull out this victory. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank y'all so much for being here every single day. Really, really, really appreciate it. We're working on setting up a crossover with our Locked On Irish host. So that's in the works. We'll get that figured out. It's going to be a ton of fun. Hope everyone has an outstanding rest of their day today, and we'll see you tomorrow right here on Locked On Aggies.